I've been putting bad guys away for 44 years. I've been part of investigating over 1,000 deaths. I've been a part of putting more than 400 murders in prison, and I'm still at it. I'm Tim Corbett. These are my cases. This isn't your typical criminal profile podcast. This is Killer Catchers. Tonight we're going to be talking on Killer Catchers. Killer Catchers is something we developed here over the last several months, and due to COVID, it kind of got pushed down the line, but here we are. Tonight we're going to be talking about Lois Hickey. Lois Hickey was a lady, 84 years old, that lived in Mishawaka, Indiana. Lois was a very quiet, small person, didn't bother anybody. One of her biggest wishes was to get to 100 years old and receive a certificate from the President of the United States. However, a neighbor, William Karimu, 19 years old, decided one evening that he wanted to feel what it was like to kill somebody. Of course, he wasn't man enough to go after somebody that might have had a gun or could fight back. He picked Lois Hickey. Lois might have weighed 120 pounds on her best day with rocks in her pocket. What a brave individual. I'm going to introduce you to some of the people that were involved in this, not everybody. And again, and I say this at every episode, I did my part. This is an I. He did his part. That's an I. And it became a we game. It's all encompassing. Mishawaka Police Department, South Bend Police Department, the U.S. Marshals. You're going to hear a story about how far we had to go to get Karimu. You're not going to hear that name too often, Karimu, because I don't pay respect to killers. I pay respect to individuals that deserve it, that being the victim and the victim's family, and the police officers and the people who are involved in it. So to my left is Galen Pelletier. He's a South Bend police officer. To his left is Jim Taylor. You'll hear me refer to him as JT. To his left is Lance Anderson. Lance is a lieutenant on St. Joseph County, Indiana Police Department. And to his left is Mike Anderson. Mike is important in this because Mike is an attorney from Anderson, Augustino, and Keller here in South Bend, Indiana. We tried to get some of the family members to come on, but for whatever reason, that didn't happen by their choice. So Mike's here to represent what he did for Lois. He won't tell you, but I will. Mike invested a lot of time, effort, even went so far as to paint the house, put tile down with one of his workers, and donated over $10,000 worth of his own personal time to get this settled. Anybody tells me there aren't good people out in this world, go someplace else, because I don't want to hear it. Galen, I'm going to turn to you first, since you and JT were the investigators on that. You worked over in our office for how long?
About 6 years.
It was a wonderful period in your life working with me, correct?
Absolutely.
Galen's
always a good time.
Galen sometimes has a problem with the truth on this kind of stuff. Anyway, Galen was one of the investigators, and I'm going to kind of turn it over to you and tell us what you did out there.
Yeah, Tim. So this is one of the crimes that will stick with me forever, just because of the act and the brutal act that this Karimu guy did. But it started back in December 29, 2011. Mishawaka Police Department received a welfare check call to a house on Donaldson Street. They get to the house, they see a broken window at the front porch. They do a welfare check. They go inside the house. They see that there's little drops of blood laying on the porch area and inside, just by observing. They also noticed that there's newspapers that were starting to pile up on the thing. So obviously something wasn't right there. So they go in, as they're doing a protective sweep of the house. They found our victim lying on the floor, covered in blood, half naked. Come to find out it was an 84-year-old female named Lois Hickey. They continue to do a sweep of the house, a protective sweep. We call it protective sweep because we want to make sure that nobody else is in that house. So when we get called out, the Metro Homicide Unit, they want to make sure the scene is safe. So they did that. They did a great job in preserving the evidence. Once they did what they had to do, they came out. They called us. The St. John County Metro Homicide Unit, and we all responded. This is one of those cases where this was a total all hands on deck. Each case, usually we have, a team of 4. We have 2 techs, 2 investigators, and we also have a supervisor who usually comes. But for this case, it was definitely unusual. Maybe because we got called out during the morning hours and we were all at work. But so anyway, JT and I go out to the scene together as we normally do, and they give us an update on what happened or what they have observed in the house. And as investigators, our job is to seek out witnesses, anybody that's seen anything, anybody that's may have some information to help us with the case. So after we had a briefing from the Mishawaka Police Department, who actually, like I said, they did a wonderful job on securing everything and preserving everything where we needed it to be. Actually told us, some of the houses that some people who called and who told them what, and so that's how JT and I started to figure out where to go. So we did some canvassing of the neighborhood. We wanted to see if anybody saw anything. So JT went to an area, I went to an area. I actually went to a house next door, nobody answered. Went on to the next house, and a lady answered there, and she was kind of puzzled. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't see all these police cars out there. And I was telling her that we were investigating the case and wanted to know if you've seen your neighbor or if she even knew of her. And she said she did, but she hadn't seen her for a while. While I'm there was I call him a teenager, a young adult, that was standing in the porch with her. We was in a closed porch. And the first thing that he said was, "So she got shot?" And something, to me, that was just unusual. I didn't mention anything about her being shot or the means of the way she was killed. And it just stuck with me, but I just continued on, asked them if they saw anything, if you could give us a call, let us know if you see anything. And then we proceeded on. JT also went and did some talking with some neighbors.
Yeah, talked to a lot of people. Try to get to know, because the one thing we learned over the years working in homicide, you get to know your victims and you get to know the victims' families. And as a family man, and as we all are family men, that it like this, it really sticks with you. Here's an 84-year-old woman that had been through life helping people. And whether it was 90 degrees outside or 20 degrees below out, she was always out helping people, shoveling her own snow, cleaning and doing her own yard work. And that's how you get to know her, because these are the neighbors that you talk to. And this is how we get to know the deceased. And as we continued on searching through the neighborhood, just looking for anybody, these are the same stories. It didn't matter whose house you were at. This is what you heard. She's still gone. It can't be. Lois? Really? And it was just like devastation in the neighborhood. So that this tells you what this woman meant to people. But we continued on. And one of the next hardest things we had to do was try and make family contact. There was no local family. Her daughter was living in Georgia at the time, and we made arrangements through a local agency. I believe it was in Columbus, Georgia.
Why did you have them do instead of do it over the phone?
Because that's just wrong in so many ways. Calling somebody on the phone to tell them, no, that's beyond. That's not even human.
How many times have we seen that, though? Somebody hears something, the first thing they got to do is get on that phone or dial in or get on the internet. We literally had one 2 weeks ago, a mother, Tyler Hurdle's mother, where she hears about it secondhand. You hear it on the internet. I wouldn't treat a dog like that, much less you deserve to hear from a policeman face to face. As hard as that is, and I've delivered hundreds and hundreds and hundrds of death messages. There is no easy way to do it, but you have to do it. You have to have the guts to do it. You have to have the empathy to do it, and it's just the right thing to do. I'm sorry.
No, but and with the assistance of, I think it was Division Chief Danny Giba, we made contact with the police department down in Georgia, and one of their supervisors went out with the police chaplain and made contact with the family, and then it was a short time then there later, Miss Hickey's daughter called, and we started talking. It was more to get to know her. It wasn't about what happened, there was the question of what happened, but we weren't going to do that over the phone because we didn't know still. We knew that she was deceased, and it wasn't done in just a horrendous, just disgusting act. So we just started getting more information about Mom, because that's what we all wound up calling her, because that's how everybody treated her. She was like a mom to everybody in the neighborhood. And it was everybody, like Galen said, everybody jumped in, just like always. That unit, everybody jumped in and just started working, because that's what we do. Because there's no I's in that unit. It's just all we's. It's a team, because we were always there for the victims and the families. And to this day, everybody still is, because that's how we were born, raised, and that's how we were trained. And
Well, once we were out there and we had that scene secured, or the scene was already secured by Mishawaka, we kind of took over the scene. And at that point, what about search warrant?
we, I believe, the technicians wound up getting a search warrant to start collection of evidence, preserving evidence collection. The scene was already secured, so there was nobody coming and going. So there was going to be no way evidence could be messed with. And that's when the techs just jumped in, and Lance and the team just attacked and just started preserving and collecting, which then helps.
Yeah.
The blood and the broken glass fragments and everything that was all collected, and it was all put back in like the big puzzle, which then helped us.
Lance, who was your partner then?
Tom Cameron. He's currently a sheriff down in Florida now, I believe.
So that means he's a lot smarter than us.
He's a lot warmer anyway.
It's like 10 here, so
Right.
yeah, I can't dodge that one. What did you do once you got there with Cameron?
Once we get the search warrant, what we like to do is go through the scene with the officers who responded initially on the welfare check and having discovered Lois. We want to be in there as limited as possible so that we can preserve the scene. So the walkthrough is just a precursory of what we're going to need when we go back out to the van to bring in equipment to collect evidence. On that walkthrough with the responding officers, we got a pretty good idea of how we were going to concentrate on that investigation. Backed out, gathered the equipment, started off on the front porch. Galen had mentioned a newspaper from the 26th. We had the 27th, 28th, and 29th wrapped up in the orange paper bag still outside the front door. The screen from the front window had been taken out. Once we got inside, it was learned that he'd used a rock to break the window. He'd thrown it with enough force to get it across the dining room table, off the side of the leaf. The glass was sprayed inward. It appears he went through that window then, cutting himself. There was a blood trail of small droplets going from the dining room into the living room, into the kitchen. Lois was located just to the north of the kitchen in the hallway. She was laying on the floor. As Galen mentioned, she was partially clad. The blood on her had dried, so I couldn't tell there how many times she'd been stabbed, but from the amount of blood there, she had been stabbed multiple times or something. We were collecting the blood samples from the broken window to Lois. She appeared to have been also battered from bruising. Later on, we would learn in the bedroom, the pallet from her false teeth was located across the bed on the floor. On the wall, there was a blood spatter, which probably came from the palate when it was dislodged from her mouth from a strike, and had flown across the room, hit the wall, and then hit the floor.
But when you're saying palate and it was dislodged, that sounds so clinical. You mean he beat the hell out of her and broke her
Yes.
broke her false teeth is what happened.
Correct.
That's what happened. And then proceeded to do what?
At some point, he had obtained a pair of scissors from the kitchen. Lois was very neat. She was very orderly. A lot of people would probably call it obsessive compulsive. If there was a place for something, she had it. Small scissors, medium-sized scissors, large scissors. Her bills were in a cabinet by the month, the year. She was very organized. There was nothing out of place in the house. The bathroom, from when he came through the window, it looked like he had went in to stop some bleeding, or maybe when he was stabbing her and had cut himself on this instrument that he was using on her, he went into the bathroom to tend to his wounds after he was done. The blood in the bathroom was, evident that he was trying to stop bleeding. Had used toilet paper to try to pack his wound.
Did you notice anything on Lois that he tried to pack her wounds, tried to stop the bleeding, tried to maybe had an epiphany that maybe this wasn't the right thing to do and try to help her save her life?
No, I'm pretty sure that the measures he took for his wounds were after she died.
So he was more worried about his little cuckoos on his hand from his obsessive beating of a 84-year-old woman.
Correct. There was blood on the handle to the basement. So of course we're going to check the basement. We go through and look for evidence everywhere. Again, going down the stairs, Lois's entire basement was clean. I mean, there weren't even dust bunnies in the corner. The shelving she had down there looked like it was from a supermarket. All of the canned goods she had down there were faced perfectly. She was just that organized. Going down those steps, because everything was so clean, about 4 steps down is where the blood stopped, because he was passively dripping blood when he was in the house. Still, he didn't do too good a job on his wounds. So about the 4th step down of the 10 steps, it just stopped. I couldn't figure out why he just stopped there, but it took me a couple of times and just trying to look and figure out why. So it was later, and I was looking at the light switch. It did have some blood on it, so I figured, okay, I'll see if the light works. Maybe I can see something else. Well, I flipped the switch, nothing worked. So I look up, there's no light up there, but as I'm looking up the door frame, there's about a 1-inch gap, and I see what appears to be a red arc of plastic. And there's gray hair hanging down from it, or what appears to be gray hair. I start taking photos of that. I change out my gloves, and I then pick up the orange arc of the plastic handle, and it's a pair of scissors. So that's taken as evidence. Comes back later that it was Lois Hickey, blood on there along with her hair, and it was commingled with his blood, and that was probably the instrument he used to stab her multiple times with, trying to get rid of it.
Well, now Lance is getting all this information, Cameron's getting all this information, we're filtering it back and forth so we have a good flow. I think Alex Arndt, who now is a division chief over Mishawaka PD, came out. He was our bloodstain guru, and he came out and took a look also. Do you remember what he said about it?
In the kitchen area, on the wall, there was blood spatter in an arc, which to him indicated she'd gotten a pretty good hit at that point that caused already accumulated blood on her to get placed on the wall from the strike, from that energy.
How long did you guys hold that scene?
It was at least 2 days, I believe.
And when I say hold the scene, what we do, we put our locks, padlocks on it, we seal it up with our tape, and we post guards at the front door and the back door, so no defense attorney can say, it was left unchecked and somebody else came in there and threw his blood around and, try and pull some OJ stuff. We're a lot smarter than that. So 2 days, about how many hours do you think you guys had into it?
All that I remember is being there in the morning, and being dog tired in the evening, at which time Cameron and I were like, that's enough because we'll miss things. When you start to get that tired, it's time to call it, go home, get some sleep so you can come back with fresh eyes. And that so many times pays off phenomenally.
Did it make a difference going back second day, and did you notice other things?
That day when we went back, I was concentrating on collecting fingerprints, doing lifts, looking for fibers or hair or anything else. Initially, on the first day, there appeared to be a hair or a fiber out by the screen that I said was taken off the window. That had been collected. Inside the bathroom, it appeared to be a hair, a short hair, probably a pubic hair. That was collected in the bathroom. So I don't know if he used the restroom while he was there feeling that comfortable after a homicide. But distinct possibility, because again, he wasn't going anywhere quick. I mean, he was worried about his wounds there. He was taking care of them in her bathroom. And then obviously with the scissors being placed up there, he wasn't too afraid of being caught.
I don't remember. Was there anything stolen?
I did not see anything that was stolen. Like I said, it appeared everything in that house had a place. The car, she had a car.
Right.
So the garage was empty when we were there. These guys doing their job, again,
What'd you find out about that?
Yeah, so, and just to go back, just in case the viewers don't know how we operate, I mean, we have two investigators. JT and I were the investigators on that case. Our job is to talk to witnesses, interrogate suspects, if any. And in the meantime, while we're doing that, there's a whole separate scene with Lance and Tom. They're doing all the really, I call it dirty work, but they have a lot of work to do. I mean, we have a lot of work to do, they have a lot of work to do. So while we call it teching the scene, JT and I are going and trying to find more leads. Then we find out that she had a car that was parked in a detached garage in the back, and come to find out it was missing. So our assumption was that this suspect, whoever it was, stole her vehicle, took her vehicle after the crime was committed to who knows where. So JT and I, and that's part of our job, is to get that information out to other law enforcement agencies, or anybody that could help us out, try to locate that vehicle. We were able to get the detailed information from Mishawaka Police Department, and put that out in what we call a crime information bulletin, which is a way for law enforcement to communicate with each other. That way they know what's going on. We put that out right away to them. And amazingly enough, probably within an hour or two,
Yeah, it was about 2
couple
hours.
hours after we were at the scene, South Bend police called us and told us that they found a vehicle. It was in 24th Street in Mishawaka, over by an apartment complex called the Courtyard Apartments. It might be a different name now.
I don't know what it's called now.
Anyway, so it was found over there. And so that gives us an idea, because, I mean, as investigators, we were trying to find out, okay, when did this happen? Like, how long has she been laying there? Where's the suspect? Which, creates fear in the community, because when somebody's murdered in a fairly nice neighborhood, it starts creating fear, and now people are talking and whatnot. So,
Well, and the way she was murdered too. You're not
Yeah.
talking about, I'm a gangbanger, you're a gangbanger. We have a shootout in the middle of the street. You know
Right.
what the cause of that is.
Right.
It's always something important, like your left pant leg is up and mine's down, or vice versa, or whatever. But this was, it appeared to be a random act.
Right.
And that makes it even more scary for people.
yeah. And
Now we got a car over on 24th Street in South Bend. Now we've got a third scene. So we have to have a search warrant for the house. Now we have to have a search warrant for the car. You guys are out running around. Who
Yeah.
took care of the car?
So JT, we split up again, as we normally do, because there's just so much information coming in at you. I mean, when you're at a scene, when you first at the scene, there's so much information coming at you both ways, and that's how we stay organized. And that's what he does. We stay organized, go from here to here to here. JT went and You went to South End where they were at?
Yeah.
Their vehicle?
The car, yeah, we went over to River Park. And then what we located on the car kind of helped with the time frame. There was a parking ticket on it that had been, and I believe it was the same, or the 26th or the 27th, I believe, is when the parking ticket was placed on the car. So we knew the car had been sitting there since that period of time, so that it even locks in more of a time frame in of when this crime happened, from the last time somebody saw her or the last paper was removed from the porch to then the time the car's located. Search warrant was done on the car, so then it was the car was taken to the Stockton Police Department evidence bays, where, like I said, all agencies always are very helpful. So they opened up their evidence bays, and I believe it was Tom Cameron led the collection of all the evidence that was recovered from the car, anything that was of value. I helped. Whatever he needed help with, it wasn't the taking pictures or the getting the prints or anything like that. It was basically he hands it to me and I was writing it down. That way we knew what we had, and that way the collection could keep strong and help preserve for the prosecution of this case someday. And then we just kept going.
Yeah. Well, matter of fact, I think they even had some people, I don't like to say person of interest, but there were people around that car that might have been associated with that car that you were able to talk to too, because in our mind, everybody's a suspect until we can prove that they're not. It's our job to investigate it thoroughly, make sure that they weren't involved in it. And I think you talked to them over at the back at the County Metro Homicide Unit.
We briefly talked to them. Yeah, and it didn't pan out to much. It was, we don't know much about nothing.
Right. And that's what, a lot of times, that's what happens. And we're always talking to people, always talking. You develop leads that way, or even the public, sometimes helps us. And that's something that we just keep going. So it's like nonstop. So even though you're gone away from the scene, in the background, you still have a lot of things going on that I don't think a lot of people see. So.
Well, I think there's a misconception that, we fly in and 1 hour later with 4 commercials, we're in and out and person's convicted and on down the road. Yeah. Lance, you remember approximately how many pieces of evidence you had from Mrs. Hickey's house?
I don't remember quite the number, but it was over 50 and probably more around 100 pieces of evidence. And when you have that much evidence, especially since we don't have the suspect yet, it's important to get a hold of the state police or the labs that you're going to do business with, but they're not going to take 100 pieces of evidence. So you've got to pick out 2 or 3 of the most important pieces that you think can contribute the quickest to the case.
What'd you send?
We took, after conferring with the prosecutor, we wanted to make sure that we had a person that was inside the house, so that blood inside the window, and that we did the trail to the kitchen with, that blood became important, so we could put a person in the house. Obviously, the scissors was very important, because if we could get the person and Lois's blood on that instrument and definitively say that whoever was in that house was the person that committed that murder, that's what we were looking for. That's the evidence that we were sending first. And I believe the investigators, with as much time and effort as they were putting into it, with the information they were getting and the suspect that they were dealing with.
How was it we ended up getting back out in that neighborhood and focusing on Karimu?
So, as I stated earlier, information just coming in at you, back and forth. The fear in the community that this scene or this crime created, people are just calling left and right, calling anonymous tips. If you need to look at this guy, you need to look at this guy, you need to look at this guy. So it's a never-ending process. And this we found her on December 29th, and so now we're into mid-January.
You mean November 29th?
No, December 29th.
December 20th.
Yep.
We found
We
Miss
found Miss Hickey in her home.
Yes,
Yeah.
my bust.
So we're going into, now we're going into January. So all this is taking place. We're following up leads. We keep going, keep going, keep going. And for some reason, the kid that was at that house that I was talking about, and he just said out of the blue. So how was she shot or something to that effect. And I never mentioned anything about how she was murdered because I wasn't even sure at the time, honestly.
Was that Karimu?
Yeah, that was Karimu. Ended up being Karimu. I didn't know him at the time. I just knew who it was because I remember it vividly when we were in there talking about it. Just really raised a red flag to me. But we kept going. After some more tips, they said that we should look at that house more because they see a lot of teenagers coming in and out of that house at all times of the day, all times of the night. So at some point in late January, I think JT was actually off that week for vacation or whatnot, even though we don't usually take vacation. But this was I just told Tom, because Tom was available at the time, this Tom, I think we need to go snatch this kid up and see if he'll come talk to us. So we go to the house, we go to his mom's house, 2 doors next to Lois's house, Miss Hickey's. And I talked to his mom, she said that he's not there. He might be at his friend's house. Well, we had already been getting other tips for a house on Edgar Street, which is just a couple blocks down. And she said he might be over there. So Tom and I go over there, knock on the door. Sure enough, he's there. We ask him if he'd like to come talk to us about the case. Since he lives a couple doors down, and he voluntarily came with us. Went down to the County Metro Homicide Unit where we did a formal interview. Not knowing if he's a suspect or not still, I read him what we call the Miranda rights and make sure that he understands that he doesn't have to talk to us. He can stop at any time. And he's more than welcome to have a lawyer present. But he didn't want to, he just said, no, I'll talk. So,
Why do you think he talked?
well, I don't know, even to this day. I mean, he's probably just trying to throw us off to make us, because I even said to myself, I even told Tom this, I said, if he goes voluntarily with us and submits to what we call a buccal DNA test where we take a stick and we put it in the mouth to get his saliva, that'll give us like a standard for DNA. If he comes down there and gives that test voluntarily, I'm not sure we actually have the right person. But we'll try it anyway. So he goes in and talks to us. He talked really nice about her, that she worked hard, never had a problem with her. I think the most important part of that, though, was to establish that he had never been inside that house, that he had never been near that house. Because if that blood that's in that house comes back to him, he can't say later on, or can't have a defense that, oh, that was from someone, whatever day that was. So we asked him a question, and he said, no, I've never been in there. I never had any dealings with her there. So we got that out of the way. So we established that he wasn't there. And he just denied that he had no idea who did it. So then came time for the voluntary buccal swab, where we take a stick, and so we read him another advisory and asked him if he consents to it. He voluntarily consented to it, signed it, took the swab, and then we took him back home because at the time we really didn't have too much on him.
We didn't have enough probable cause.
Right.
I can remember watching the interview and writing notes and sending them in, ask this, ask this. You guys must have thought there was a freaking paper drive, because I'm sure
that's good.
Somebody knows how to
That's good because we get it sometimes as investigators when when we're talking to people, you get that tunnel vision. You get tunnel vision.
Absolutely.
And you don't think about it. That's the great thing about how we work and operate. While we're doing the interview, somebody else is in the background where they're not as tunnel. They all have that tunnel vision like we do.
Well,
So to see that-
it's a battle. It's a battle.
Right.
You're, you know, you came in here with a pretty face and information. You're not leaving with both, right? That's a old term that apparently people used to get smacked with.
Yeah.
Chicago phone books and all that. We don't do that, so don't even think we do. But you know, you have to keep prying. You have to dig. You want to have the answers. And when you're in the heat of the battle like that, sometimes you skip over stuff, not meaning to, but you do.
Right.
And somebody sitting on the outside can go, see if he's ever been in the house. You know, now you got him locked in on a burglary.
Right.
Then you just take little steps, and you know, you let them wrap themselves into a story. And so many times with these guys, they're smarter than you. They're smarter than you. They're smarter than me. They're smarter than everybody. They think that they can beat the game by coming in and spinning this story, and you're just a dumb cop, and you're going to go, okay, because you came out of your cake hole, I'm supposed to believe it.
Yeah.
And then, but you don't know what we know.
Right.
You just don't know. So, where were you at?
I was gone that week.
Yeah, where were you at?
I'm trying to remember.
No, you're I'm sure it was someplace sunny with a beer in your hand and a cigar in your face and a golf club.
It was a golf club and a cigar.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Yes, yes.
So Galen's slaving away here with.
Oh no, he worked hard.
So,
He
yeah.
really did.
It-
It's just those few
How
days.
long did it take, Lance, once the buccal swab, people call it, but once that was obtained, that's got to go off to the state police, right? With the standard.
Correct.
Kind of walk through that quickly, so you know we don't put anybody to sleep.
Okay.
Not you, I mean the subject matter. Never you, Lance.
Again, we're limited to the three pieces of evidence that I talked about before. Now we've got a standard, the buccal swab, to go with that information. They're sent to the state police. They also are kind of limited in their resources. So we've talked to the guy who ran the place, letting him know that, hey, we'd like to get these through as soon as possible. And they do what they normally do. It's, you know, they've got limited resources. It takes time. I can't remember if it was weeks or a month or what.
It was,
It was just a few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was like about towards right at the beginning of March.
Right.
Is when we got all
and
that.
normally to do the DNA, it was taking at the time like 48 hours to get it through the DNA processor. So a couple of weeks later, we get the results back, and they confirmed that his standard matched the blood that was collected in the living room and off the scissors.
What when you get that call, when you hear that, you know I know how I feel. What would you think?
I was quite glad that we had somebody to go with this horrendous murder of this poor 84-year-old woman. I get to stand back and look at it almost in an environment to where I'm not dealing with people, which, you know, I just look at the facts. I look at the stuff that's there at the scene. I collect it. I get it to a lab for processing. These guys actually have to talk to the people that sustain the loss in the families. They have to, you know, get questions out of the people that are going through the grief process. They also have to talk to the people that don't want to give them the answers. And they've got to do it in a manner to get those answers. So, you know, having an attitude or anything of that nature isn't going to get the job done. These guys are awesome at what they do.
Mike, you're sitting down there on the end, and
I'm learning a lot.
you're probably going to go off the grid as soon as we leave here.
No,
Living
it's
in the side
wonderful.
of a hill. Well, you at the end, and we'll get to what happened. But when this thing was all done and over with, you were contacted by someone to take over the logistics of the lawyer end of that. What happened?
I think you were the someone. And so, you know, I talked to my
Thanks
partners.
for timing me out. Mike cracks very easy under pressure.
I do,
You
I
don't
do.
have to waterboard him. He'll puke it.
You could use a piece of paper instead of a phone book.
Paper.
Yeah, I want people to know you really are. You are concerned about the victims and their family. So, you know, when you contacted me, I talked to my partners, and we decided that, given the horrific nature of this, that we would donate our time and other resources that we have. I'm very fortunate in that regard. And I spoke to the daughter in Georgia and got permission to kind of take control of the scene once you guys had left, and got company to change all the locks and then go into the house. And you talk about as you go and investigate, and Mrs. Hickey was still there. I kind of came in after the fact. And what happened is the insurance company would pay for the biological cleanup, which means they came in and tore the carpeting out, the floor out, the walls, everything. So it was just a nightmare.
You actually saw the scene.
Oh yeah.
From a lay person's point of view, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to describe that, then you can get back to what you did.
But and I knew where she had been found and kind of the circumstance of it. It was just so brutal. And by that time, I had kind of come to know who she was, and 84 years old. And you're right, that house was so pristine. I felt like I knew her just by being in that bungalow. And the brutality of it, and how one human being could do that to another person. You guys see it all the time. And that's not my life, And you almost just break down and cry because it's so senseless and so stupid. And then the devastation left behind that these people don't even think of. And I didn't want her daughter to ever see the home in the condition that it was in. So insurance company pays for the cleanup, doesn't pay for the rebuild. So I do have resources. My law office is a 125-year-old Studebaker home. Yeah, so we have a lot of maintenance, and we have a full-time maintenance man, Jay Daly, who's a talented, do everything right kind of guy. So he actually came in with me, and we were able to kind of redo the flooring, redo the drywall, get it painted, put in tile. So by the time her daughter came, the house had been pretty totally restored. And we were able to do that. The insurance company wouldn't pay for it, but we donated that to the family as well. And then, you have a death and you have to open an estate. So we went through that process to get her daughter appointed as the representative, and then to try and sell the house. And again, I say I'm blessed with good people in my life, and I've got a good friend who's a realtor, Del Meyer. Most realtors would run and hide from trying to sell a house where a murder had been committed. Mr. Meyer said, "I'll do it. I'll help the family." And he was able to get the house listed. A nice young family bought it. And I thought, that's kind of a tribute to Mrs. Hickey, that this family realized what a beautiful home it had been. And even though her life ended there, she lived a life there. And it was a good life and a lot of good vibes in that home. And so we were pleased to see that happen. And then we were able to take care of the car after you released it. And again, other people in the community donated time. Tony's Mobile took the car. They put tires on it so it was safe. The daughter was actually going to give it to Mrs. Hickey's niece. And they did the oil change and put a battery in. And it was a real low mileage, little Saturn coupe, like 7,000 or 8,000 miles. Yeah. Something like that. Typical car.
But it looked like it was brand new.
Oh, it did, yeah.
Just the way she took care of it.
Just the way she took care of everything. I just felt like I came to know her. And then, the people at Car Waste Body Shop, they detailed it and cleaned it. So when the family got the car back after everything that had been done, it was pristine, it was nice, the house was nice. We were able to get the house sold, close the estate, and do all those things. And we're just glad to be able to be part of it. Sometimes you just do the right thing.
So not only do we have all the cops involved, now we have Tony's Mobile donating time. We got Del Meyer donating time. We got you guys donating time. This is what makes me sick. Anytime I hear cops don't care, people don't care, you're being lied to. It's not the truth. You've just heard it here. This isn't a speech. There isn't some board up here that we're reading. This is from the heart. This is stuff that people do every single day, but they don't stand up on a hill and call themselves heroes and pound on their chest. They just do because that's what they're supposed to do. Now, we're back to the hit, and I'm sure we were all running up down the hallway being stupid, yelling and screaming and happy as hell that we got this information. And it's get a prosecutor on the phone, get somebody's butt in the chair right now. We're going to get charges and we're going to go get this dude. That was a great plan. We got the charges. We're going to go get the dude, but the dude was gone. He ended up going to where?
He ended up going to Sierra Leone in Africa.
So that's a little far from
a little bit far from where,
I don't think we had a budget for that. So
not much. But he was able to. I guess he came to the States when he was 5 years old or something. Established citizenship here, but still he had his biological father that lived in Africa still. So once we did the DNA on him, he already knew in his mind that he needed to get out of town because we're going to catch him.
And of course, he didn't have the resources, so somebody had to help him, right?
Yeah, we had again more follow up talking to a lot of people. More people start calling in because he started running his mouth more because he was afraid it was going to happen. So he ended up going to Indianapolis with a friend, a good friend of his. And from there, we were able to track that he left for Africa on a flight, and you were able to get that information.
We found the flight information, and we were days behind him. But it being the days behind him, once he's gone is when everybody starts talking. To the point where the one day we have associates telling us about how he was starting to get very scared and even broke down crying about what he had done. But he still packed his bag and flew the hell back to where he was from and back to Africa because he knew, he thought he was safe there. But we didn't stop. We did everything we could to the point where once we got the arrest warrants, then we worked timelessly on trying to get extraditions in place to where now the arrest warrants for murder and felony murder and everything we attacked with, we got with the U.S. Attorney's Office and started working with people out of D.C. so we could get extraditions. And once that was all signed, and Ken Cotter, who's now the prosecutor, he was a deputy chief prosecutor in charge of the homicide unit back then, we worked timelessly trying to figure out how to do this and get all this organized. Eric Tamaszewski, who was another prosecutor, he was a part of it. And it was, again, just groups of people. It wasn't just one person. It was a team effort. And then once we got the extradition signed by the judges and everything, and then it was entered into the international databases to the point where if he even peeks his head into somewhere, he's got warrants and he's going to get taken into custody. And sure as what happened to him when he was in Africa, he showed up at the embassy. And to this day, I still don't know why I don't know if he was trying to get a passport to come back or a visa or whatever to come back. And he checked in and they ran his name and there's an arrest warrant with extraditions coming back to the United States, and he was taken into custody.
Well, he was trying to get a new passport because we had made contact, and I think, didn't we have to go through France because France had a treaty with them?
Yes,
and
yes.
Then we got the U.S. Marshals involved, and of course the U.S. Marshals, that's not like a hop, skip, and a jump. They have to, if I recall right, they got on a plane, flew somewhere, got on another plane, flew someplace else, and they had to get on a boat, and chug up the river to this little area where he was at. So this big, brave kid that killed not a kid, he's an adult, killed an 84-year-old lady, he got down to South Africa and decided, boy, it's a little tough down here. They have animals and bugs, and you don't get to go to the 7-Eleven and get your Slurpee and wear your tennis shoes and all that. It's pretty tough down there. And what happens usually with cowards, they do what the cowardly thing is, and they try and get their way back to mommy because they don't have the intelligence or the wherewithal to take care of themselves, so they have to come back. And the embassy, the consulate, was made aware. He may try and show up here because it's a little bit too tough down here. And within a relatively short period of time, he showed up and said, "Hey, I'd like to get my new passport here." And they said, "Yeah, come on in." And grabbed him by his shirt and drug him in, and I'm sure he fell down and got all handcuffed and sat in a jail for a while. And then here's the U.S. Marshals showing up. Here's your extradition papers, getting these cuffs, and they brought him back. And I talked to some of those guys that went down there. Boy, I'll tell you what, there wasn't enough lunches to buy him. They couldn't even, as I recall, they couldn't even carry a weapon.
No, they were
could
not allowed to carry
a
weapons.
weapon.
No.
And here you are getting off a boat in the middle of nowhere, you don't have anything to protect yourself. That's kind of a bad day. So again, there's another one. U.S. Marshals, the consulate, Washington, D.C., local prosecutor, federal prosecutor, everybody coming together, and nobody stood up and said, "Look at me, I did this, I did that." And I'm going to say it every time, it's not I. Anybody ever tells you it's I did it all, you're a liar. It's everybody. And that's what's important. These things can be done. They can be accomplished. You can't quit. You can't stop. You got to keep pushing. When I hear some of these things about, we can't get overtime, or, we can't do this, we can't do that. How do you not pay someone that's working 20 hours, how do you try and distract that? I don't know how you tell a family, we're only going to do a half-ass job for right now. And something we could have got done in 6 days is now going to take 86 days at your pain and suffering. So for anybody out there that's listening to that, it's a sad state of affairs when that happens. Let cops be cops. Let cops do what cops do. No good cop likes a bad cop, period. So when I hear all this stuff about systemic racism and how cops are, somebody's blowing bubbles up your butt. That's not true. That's not true. I'm not saying there aren't any cops like that, because I'm sure there are, but overall 99 9/10% are good people that do things like this. And when you listen to this podcast, it's not because it's my podcast, it's our podcast, it's your podcast. I'm bringing in people that get to say from their heart, not scripted, not told what to say. I don't know what's going to come out of their mouth. It could be good, it could be bad, but it's going to be the truth. And that's what's important, you hear the truth. So, Galen, kind of wrap up what your feelings are, and then we'll just go around the room.
I think it was one of the most proudest moments in being back there at the homicide unit, because of what you had said. That it was a total team effort. It wasn't just me, JT, Lance. It was a lot of people. A lot of people came together and was able to get justice for Miss Hickey.
JT?
Yeah, it's the family. It truly is. You become part of the Hickey family. Just like every other case we've ever worked back there in the 11 plus years I was back there. Every one of those victims, you become a part of their family. And it's the proudest moment when you can give the family at their time of loss the hug, especially when the trial's over with and he's guilty in a matter of hours. And then you get to give the family, our family to their family, here's the end result. And you're proud because you get to hug them. And they just, that just sticks with you forever.
Lance?
For me, it's the pride of being able to work with guys like this.
Really?
It is. Look, like you're saying, the time, the effort that's put in, the emotional toll it takes on you, it's great to work with a group of people like that. When I was back in the house, I think you like saying, the Sky Marshal, he's in charge. He makes lots of decisions for us. I couldn't figure out what kept me hanging up on those steps. But, looking for that light switch that there was no light to, and looking up, I don't know if it was Lois or the Sky Marshal saying,
Sky Boss.
Sky Boss,
That was a great find.
hey,
Yeah.
look up.
Yeah.
Look up. Because how many times as cops do we not look up? You need to look up. But no, to recap, it's just, it was great. We got to bring closure for the family. We got to take somebody that didn't deserve to be out on the street anymore.
Mike, what's your view?
It's like so many things when you deal with death in our community. My minister's mother just passed away over the weekend. I said, Mike, there's nothing I can say to make things any better. Words don't mean anything. You can just do it by actions. And getting involved with Mrs. Hickey in the aftermath, to be able to help the family and give some respect to her life, I think was the most important thing. And for me, you talk about bad cops, and I'm proud of my law firm and the people I practice law with. And it was just a very common, yes, we're just going to do this because this was brutal. We need to help the best way we can. And you can show it by actions rather than words. So I always look back and say it was a nice, good point in my life where I can say, yeah, we helped. We did something right. And all the people that I know that kind of came to bat when you asked for help, they're, well, sure, I'd love to do that for you. Kind of like this circle of friends and good people you just know you can count on. And help make it easier on the family and help bring that to an end the best it could.
Well, after my 45 years of being a policeman, I can tell you it was an honor and a privilege. I wish I could go back and rewind it. I don't know how well I do now with all the touchy-feely and the computers and all that kind of stuff. I might make it out of roll call, I don't know. But it truly is an honor and a privilege to be a policeman. I know sometimes that's a dirty word, but it's really not. It's something I wear with honor. I want to thank all the first responders. I want to thank all the vets, and I want to thank all the people that are in the military now fighting for us. You give us the opportunity to do these kinds of things and spread the truth, tell the truth, and take care of these people. Trust me, the things that we see, the things that we do, you don't even want to begin to know about. But we're bringing a little light to it. We're cracking that door a little bit and bringing you into our world so you honestly know what it's like and the horrific things that people do to each other. As horrific as this is, you're going to hear more in the future. You're going to hear about a person killing a baby. You're going to hear a lot of things, and it's going to blow your hair back. You're going to think, what in the hell is going on? But it happens. It's the truth, and maybe you can learn from it. So thank you for listening. Please tell everybody you know about this so they can listen and they can learn and they can hear the truth. Thank you.